Welcome. I'm your host, Dustin, and joining us today is not only a good friend of mine, but someone who lives and breathes horror, whether it being for writing for Bloody Disgusting, doing any sort of social work for uh, Screenbox, producing, writing, shorts, films. It's Alex DiVincenzo. Um,
Hey, thank you for
and
having me.
we've been friends for, it has to be over a year now. Like well over
We
a
we are
year.
acquaintances at best.
Yeah. Oh, shut up. Shut up. So today we're going to be talking about, everything that you've been doing, since your big spark with doing things with Screenbox and writing for Bloody Disgusting and our friendship and what we've been doing. So this is going to be more of a very lax conversation. And I'm so excited for this one to actually talk to somebody that I know, which is always fun. But being able to interview and talk to other people is a joy as well. But having a nice lax moment and catching up with you and also informing everybody what you do. So first question I always like to ask, and I know you've listened to these before, is to see where everything kind of began with you, whether it be, the filming or, wanting to be a writer for Bloody Disgusting. Where did it kind of, all start with you, man?
Um, I'll try to make this short, but it
As
won't
long
be.
as it needs to be.
Um, the movie that made me a horror fan is Freddy versus Jason.
Hell yeah, dude.
Um, when that movie came out, I was familiar, anecdotally, pop culturally with Freddy and Jason as characters, but hadn't seen any of the movies. But I was at the right age. I was like 14 when that came out. Loved a lot of bands on the soundtrack. It was like half new metal bands, which I was like into at the time, and I was just graduating to like real like metalcore type stuff. And the soundtrack had both. It had like Slipknot, and then it had Hatebreed and Killswitch Engage. Um, so that drew me in. Plus like just the concept of the movie. Sounded like fun. I was a big like wrestling fan. Seemed to everything just kind of came together with my interests. Um, so I thought I could just like I didn't have like the time to rent the combined 17 movies before Freddy vs. Jason, or I didn't have the patience anyway.
Yeah.
So I was like, I mean, they're like famously kind of I don't want to say dumb because I love both franchises, but they're not exactly plot intensive movies. So I was like, I can probably just get by with seeing the first Friday and the first Elm Street and like then go into Freddy vs. Jason and be okay. Needless to say, I was shocked when Jason wasn't in the first Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
But I still loved Freddy vs. Jason, went back and watched them all, loved them all. Went through as soon as I watched those two franchises, I went to Halloween, which Halloween became my favorite movie, still is my favorite movie.
Hell yeah, man.
And just, expanded from there, went through all the classics. I was on like IMD message boards when those were still a thing, just like getting
Oh,
recommendations
wow,
for
dude.
yeah. Did like the Romero Dead movies and got deeper and deeper in the weeds of horror. And I mean, I'm still searching for, anything cool that I haven't seen, new or old. And with that, like when I never like, I don't know how to just have like a hobby that's fun that I just do a little bit. I go like all in when I'm passionate about something. So I quickly started like writing reviews, again, starting on like message boards and stuff. Contributed to some like no-name sites throughout high school. Eventually, like co-ran this site called Horror 101 when I was a teenager. And this was the MySpace days to date it even more.
Oh, wow, man. Stop
And
it, please.
saw
Stop it.
yeah, saw a thing on MySpace. So thought my end game was basically to like be like a film journalist of some kind or film critic. But I saw a thing on MySpace about this movie shooting in like vaguely close to me. It was within Massachusetts. We're both from Massachusetts, of course. This movie called Beg that had like all these. Now it's like I need to preface this. Now like there's every independent horror movie has like half of a convention guest list in their cast. Like it's
Yep.
not unusual to see a bunch of former like, people from other big franchises are now like slumming it in indies. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But at the time, this was God, like 2006 or something like that. Um, there it wasn't quite as typical. So this movie had it was Tony Moran, who's the unmasked Halloween, Michael Myers in the original Halloween, PJ Souls from Halloween, Tony Todd, who's Candyman, I forget a few other like genre people like that. And I was like, wow, these people are going to be like in Massachusetts working on a movie. Like, I need to be involved in this somehow. So I messaged their page on MySpace and was like, oh, I have this site, Horror 101. Like, could I come and do like a set visit and like, promote your film? And, it's win-win. I get to come be part of the experience. They get the free promotion. Not that I had like a huge following, but
Yeah.
I go all out on things. So I was promoting Horror 101 at the time on MySpace big time. So we had like, whatever a what seemed like a sizable amount of followers at the time. So anyway, that all worked out. I went to the set and it was just like I'll never forget it. It was like a light bulb went off over my head. I was like, oh, I thought I wanted to write about movies. I'm an idiot. Like, I want to make movies. Like, these are my people. Like,
Hell
I've
yeah.
always been like, unless I'm talking about movies, I don't know. Like, I can't make small talk. I'm a socially awkward dude. But like on a set where it's people like everyone who's just there because they love movies and they're there to like make movies, talk about movies. Like, I was like, oh, this is where I belong. Um, so that's been, I mean, I didn't just immediately start making stuff, but like that was like
Yeah.
my ultimate goal, still is my ultimate goal to be a filmmaker, which is something I'm sure we'll get to at some point,
Yep.
when I stop rambling. That is something I still pursue. But I basically kept doing the writing on the side, kept working on any independent film set I could find that was local. A lot of long hours and free labor, but like made, friends and, connections, people I still work with today. Um, and yeah, so my writing started to get better. I contributed to a bunch of like, the bigger horror sites at the time. I wrote for like Dread Central, I wrote for Arrow in the Head, I Horror. Never made to Bloody Disgusting, but that was like my goal because that was like I mean I feel like at this now Bloody Disgusting like is the big daddy of
Yeah.
horror sites. Again at this time, whatever 15 years ago, it was it was still one of the big ones, but there was like I don't know like three or four that were all pretty big, and like each I feel like every horror fan had like their own like oh that's my site like I like their whatever their reviewers their voice whatever their approach. And Bloody Disgusting was always mine. Um, but yeah, so I kept writing for these sites. It was for little to no money, but it was like cool to get my name out there. And eventually I just got so tired, especially of the news cycle. Like it's just like everyone just like I won't name any names, but definitely one of the sites I wrote for was like, just go to the other horror sites, refresh the page, see what they post, and then if we haven't posted it, you go and post like, write it in your own words. It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
plagiarism, but
Exactly.
it's just like a rat race to see who can post the news the fastest. Um, and I just got tired of that. So I was like, if I'm gonna do all this work for free, like I'd rather do it on my own or very little money. I'd rather do it by my own rules and like do something that I can have fun with. And that's where Broke Horror Fan was born. I'm a big horror collector, physical media, memorabilia, posters, whatever. Um, so I was like, I wanted to find my niche, and that was, that came naturally to me. I was like, that's something that I collect. I know other people are into it.
Hmm.
Let's, start a little blog. Actually, I started on Twitter first. This was to jump social media eras. I'm now on Twitter. Uh, and yes, I started a Twitter page for Broke Horror Fan that eventually I was like, okay, I'm going to turn this into a blog. People are into it. And I did that. And God, I should have looked up the year on this, but it's been going for like, I don't know, like 10 years now, maybe something. I want to say
For a
2016
while,
is when I
man.
started, something like that.
Yeah.
Close to a decade. And it's grown considerably in audience, which is awesome. Um, and I didn't really do a lot of long form writing on Broker Fan. It's a lot of, I mean, it still is if you look at the site, even more so now than ever. It's like, Fright Rags will release a shirt. I'll write like a 2 sentence thing about Fright
Yeah.
Rags release these shirts by these artists. It's this price. Here's the link to go buy it, basically. Um, because that's what I wanted. I didn't need, I don't need the synopsis of this movie that I've seen 300 times or like, the list of the cast and, if it's particularly if it's not a new movie. Um, but I did kind of miss the long form writing. So through a weird series of events, I made a tweet about my appreciation for Sarah Michelle Gellar, how
Okay.
she's not brought up in the like the conversation about like scream queens or horror icons or whatever you call them very often. Even though in the same year she did uh Buffy, Scream 2, and I Know You Did Last Summer. So it's like, I mean, that alone I think earns her the title.
Yeah.
So I just made like this random tweet about this and it got like a bu not that it like went viral or anything, but got like a bunch of traction. Um and I was like, I want to write something about this. Actually, a friend of mine was like, you should turn this into an article. Like it's getting a bunch of like shares. I was like, yeah, I guess I could. So I wrote a thing, and I was like, yeah, I could just post it to Bloody Disgusting, but like it'd be cool if people actually read. I mean, excuse me, I could just post it on Broke Horror Fan, but it'd be cool if like people actually read it because like I know people don't come to Broke Horror Fan for, to read articles.
Yeah.
So I submitted it to Bloody Disgusting. I have a long like internet friendship with John Squires, who's the editor-in-chief of Bloody Disgusting. We came up around the same time, blogging together. He used to have a blog called Freddy in Space, when I was doing Horror 101 and then Broke Horror Fan. Um, so I sent it to him. I was like, no hard feelings. Like it's already written. If you like it and want to publish it, that's cool. If not, it'll go on Broke and that's fine too. He's like, yeah, this is cool. It's well written. Let's run it and see what happens. And it was again almost like that time when I stepped on that film set. It was like, oh, people are actually like, because they still have a comments section on Bloody Disgusting. Most websites have done away with it because they're often cesspools. But
Yeah, they can be pretty brutal.
yeah, but Bloodies are like pretty decent, I will say. But it was just like to see people like commenting, like that they read the article, that they agreed, or even if they disagreed, whatever. But to have that kind of immediate feedback, and then they shared it on their social media, which obviously had a much wider reach than I did. So to see people, sharing the article on Facebook or retweeting it on Twitter, and like some like I mean filmmakers who I admire or whatever, actors commenting on it that I admire. So I definitely got like a rush from that. I was like, oh, I need to do this more. So I just started submitting more and more, pitching, I should say. I pitched more and more to John. Um, and eventually he was just like, you're just like part of the team now. There's no like formal conversation. Like you're just like a Bloody Disgusting writer now.
That's
Like, okay. I
awesome.
was like, yeah, okay. I have a weekly column called Killer Collectibles, which is basically like almost like a Reader's Digest version of Broke Horror Fan. If you don't read Broke Horror Fan, it's like five of the coolest collectibles announced each week. And then I do reviews, interviews. I cover a lot of home media, Blu-ray and 4K reviews. Um, so yeah, I mean that's an extremely long way to answer that question,
No,
but
I
that
that's
brings us up
exactly what I
to,
wanted.
oh, and I didn't even mention Screenbox, which
Oh yeah.
kind of happened around the same time, but completely unrelated to the Bloody Disgusting stuff. Um, for anyone listening who may not know, Bloody Disgusting and Screenbox are owned by the same parent company,
Yep.
Cineverse. So the way we brand Screenbox is Bloody Disgusting powered. So they are, they're kind of sibling entities, I guess you could say. But I came on board them completely separately. They're Tom, who's one of the co-founders and co-owners of Blood Disgusting, posted a thing about looking for, I forget what, I think it was to do video work, like some kind of editing or
Hmm.
or graphic design. I can't remember exactly what the position was. But I was like, oh, I do because I do everything.
You do. You really do.
Um, none of it particularly well, but I do a lot of things. I want to say it was video editing, but I was like, oh, I'm a video editor. Here's some samples of my work. Like, let's work together. And he's like, I don't know, whatever the job was didn't end up happening for whatever reason. Not with me or with somebody else. Um, but then they were looking for somebody to do publicity. And John brought up my name because I had done, it started when I started making, or not making, but working on, independent stuff. I was like, oh, I have all these contacts at these horror sites that either I've written for, I've become friendly with over the years. Let me write up a press release for this indie horror movie that I worked on that otherwise no one's going to hear of, and
Yeah.
send it to them. And then I started getting a little bit of work doing that. I Fright Rags is like one of my big clients. They still are to this day.
Love
I
them
do
so
their
much.
publicity.
Got my
Oh, there we go.
avant-garde desk cup right here.
Good work. Um, so yeah, so John had been receiving my press releases over the years. And when the uh position became available for somebody to handle their publicity, my name got thrown in the ring. And Tom was like, "Oh, I know that guy. Like we talked about whatever, some other job." Um, so it all just kind of like coalesced at the same time. They reached out about doing the publicity. That happened. You know, it was kind of like a trial thing. I was like, "Oh, let's do one like blast and see what happens." They were satisfied with that. And again, around about the same time, they were like, "We also need someone to run like our social media. Is that something you'd be interested in?" Like, like we see what Broke Horror Fan does. Like if you could, kind of do something
Yeah.
like that and like, keep an audience engaged, not just post, a very generic thing every like schedule a post every, 3 days a week or whatever. Um, and I was like, oh yeah, no, I can definitely do that. So I quickly became, yeah, Screenbox's publicist, in-house publicist and social media manager. That was like 2 years ago, shortly after Bloody Disgusting took over there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and been doing that ever since. And if the first interview I ever did for as a representative of Screenbox was with you when you had Brandon and I on.
Yeah.
I
That
can't remember if I
was
told any of these stories already, so I apologize. But
I honestly don't really. I think we really just aimed everything towards Screenbox on that, and
yeah,
like
I
kind
think
of like
so.
breaking down the whole site and like what you guys were expecting and everything. And, picking his brain for that side of it. Being the one who's like acquiring all the films to put on there, and then talking to you, and then we had the revelation that we both live pretty close to each other. Like we're in the same state and we both love horror, and then that kind of sparked a friendship, and ever since then we've been kind of helping each other out with everything, especially with Screenbox. And I say this a lot to everybody that I talk to, whether on the show or off, but like between you and my friend Dean, who sometimes co-hosts over there, I owe a lot to the both of you for how far I've been able to go on this show, for the support. And you know I guess even like just people posting about the show, or you sending me an email of being like, hey man, you want to check this out, and I'm like, yeah. And then I get people on the show to help support what you're doing, as well as what Bloody Disgusting and Screenbox is doing. And then it kind of all like snowballed into me doing live events this year, which was absolutely awesome. And some of them were sponsored from Screenbox, and I
Hmm.
owe a lot to you for what you do, and to be a friend. It's so mind blowing to know that, like, I work this boring 6 to 2 job, and then I come home and I'm able to sit down, go on here, see what I have on my emails, and be like, oh, I can check out that movie today. Thanks, Alex. And do all these other things. So it's really really cool to be in this sphere of people.
Well, thank you for saying that, first of all. But I mean, it goes both ways. You've been instrumental in helping people discover Screenbox as well, and we greatly appreciate it. And I mean, that's the horror community. Some people I've seen arguments that like the horror community doesn't exist, and like I don't know, man, I don't get it. Like there's a lot of drama you can get embroiled in. There's bad people out there,
Oh
but
yeah,
like on the whole, like for the most part, like I mean, I've met some of my best friends through horror movies, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Like everyone's so nice, like it's accepting, supportive. I think that's the biggest takeaway I found there's definitely some people who are like whatever, jealous or,
yeah, for
they're,
sure.
they think if somebody else is successful, why couldn't that be me kind of thing. But no, again, in general, like super supportive, and just like I don't know, stoked to see one another succeed. When one of us succeeds in anything, whether it's, you score a big interview or, you put on a cool event or Screenbox acquires a big movie or, a horror movie that from a major studio comes in at number one at the box office. Like that's a win for everyone. Like it
Yeah.
trickles down, um, for, it's good for the genre.
Yeah, I agree a lot. And like hearing your story of where you started and where you are now, like that's like super inspiring. And that's another thing that's been happening a lot on this show with interviews and me like discovering films or talking about them, is to realize how inspiring a lot of things are for people, especially hearing stories like that, or if I'm interviewing somebody who's done a very small independent film and they've, made it some way, it inspires other people to go and do something. And that's the whole thing that I want to do with this show. It's not only just to meet people and talk to people like you and become friends with people like you, is to hopefully help somebody else out there, you know, find their way to where they want to be, and knowing that there will be roadblocks. There's always roadblocks no matter what you do, but finding a way to get around them and picking people up around you who are trying to do the same thing to get to that same goal is what I really, really want to do with this show. And I think it's been helping and working a lot. And yeah, it's so cool to hear these stories from anybody, to see where they started and then where they are now is so cool. So cool.
Well, that's the other thing about, again, the horror community is it's up to, the current torchbearers or whatever to pay it forward. And I mean, I
Yeah.
try to do that in any chance I get, whether it's helping you with screenings, whether it's, oh, look at that. Drunk Horror Fan Presents. Or, like keep them coming, keep them coming.
Keep them coming. Keep them coming.
Um, helping you with events, or I've produced shorts for friends who are interested in filmmaking. It's all about, like I said, paying it forward. Like, I want to be the person I wish I had when I was in that person's position, or a similar position. Just to take some of the weight off and show them that it can be done, because it can be. I mean, I'm living proof of that. We were saying the other day, at the last screening, I pay my bills exclusively with horror movies now. Like,
Which is so
it's
sick.
I'm not making them yet. That's the next step. But like, through Bloody Disgusting and Screenbox and our VHS stuff, and I still do some freelance editing. Um, that's all. That's my job now. And it's amazing. I never thought I would get here. And if I can, fall backwards into it, anyone can, as long as you really commit yourself. I had a friend who told me one time, and I never thought about this way, but it's not untrue in a roundabout way. I She said, I like, when I want something bad enough, I just will it into existence. And like, that's true to some extent, but it's like, I also, the way I will into existence is by like working
Yep.
way harder than anyone else would to do that thing, like than any sane person would, like committing, hundreds of hours of unpaid work on, writing for years, or, all these, shorts I made where, I'm spending money, but there's no return on investment on a short film, or, stuff like that, where it's like, I'm super grateful for where I am, and everything that I've been able to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think anyone can do it.
Yeah, for sure. And I kind of want to, guide us into the next thing I want to talk about, is your actual making of the films and producing, because one that you just put online yesterday, or is it
It
today?
was it was yesterday,
It was
yes,
yesterday. My days have
as
been
of this recording.
so messed up, but your new one, Reverberance, which I was happy and lucky to be able to show this as an opening short for one of the events I did this year. But I kind of want to know the background of how this kind of came about, and like all the ideas that you were trying to put into this as it being an ASMR horror experience, because I think you do such a great job of all of the sound elements and the visuals, even though it's very minimal, and I like that a lot. I always give props to people who can make short films, keep things minimal, and still tell a very good story. And this film does all of that. So why don't you kind of explain the whole process of getting this film made?
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all, for the kind words. I appreciate it.
Hell yeah.
And I think that was our last theatrical screening. So that was really cool to see it with Sweet Relief that time.
Yeah, it was.
Um,
It was Sweet Relief. That's right.
yeah. Um, but yeah, so TJ Frizzy, who is one of my best friends, you've hung out with us before. He he's worked on a bunch of my shorts, super supportive dude, big horror fan. That's how, we met, through a mutual friend who's, also a horror fan. Um, and he had expressed interest in getting more into filmmaking. We had made a couple other shorts where we wrote together and then I directed and he acted. Our first short was Be Us. And then we made one called the, I was going to say The Nurturing, that's not the right short. The Misplaced.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, and then he wanted to direct. And we, through a series of events, decided for this one we would try co-directing, just to so I could help kind of guide him if he needed a support system to fall back on. Um, so that's how Reverberance came to be. He came up with the initial concept. I helped kind of whittle it down, reshape it. Wanted to make sure. I think I suggested no dialogue. His original thing only had like one line in it, and I was like, why don't we just try to tell it without any dialogue? It's a short thing. It was only like it's 3 minutes, the final thing
Yep.
without credits. And I think it was like 2 pages on, written. I was like, let's just do it without di like, I think it'd be cooler that way. Um, and he's very adaptive. Open to my thoughts, my ideas. And I like to think vice versa. I try to be open as well. It's all about making whatever's the best. It's not like, this was my idea, that was his idea, it's just what makes the best short. And to your point earlier about kind of, you know, doing something, minimal in a short amount of time, that's I'm like a stickler about that.
Okay.
Whenever like I mean, it sounds easy to like take 1 or 2 days and make a short film. And I mean, it is in the grand scheme of things compared to like features or literally any other job in the world that requires a ton of work. But like, if you're going to take that effort and again, like money that you're putting into it that you're not going to, it's like you're just investing in yourself. Like,
Yeah.
there's no return on that money on a short, or almost never. Um, I want to do something that hasn't been done, or not, I shouldn't say hasn't been done, but I want to do something that's like at least a little original. I have other friends who are filmmakers, very talented filmmakers, and there's nothing wrong with this, it's just different approach, but they'll be like, I like whatever, I like Halloween, I'm gonna make a slasher movie, and then they make a slasher movie that's just like Halloween, or like I love Romero's movies, I'm gonna make a zombie movie, and it's like, just like, a
Yeah.
low budget version of Dawn of the Dead or whatever. And like that's cool. I enjoy, I watch those, but like as the person putting in the energy to make it happen, I just couldn't do that personally. So whenever I do a short, like I wouldn't take the effort to make any short that if it's something I didn't fully believe in that regard. And I'm also a staunch believer that no short film, excuse me, I shouldn't say no short film. I shouldn't blanket it like that, but the vast majority of short films should not be over 10 minutes.
I
Um,
agree with that to a
there's a
certain
big,
extent.
yeah, there's definitely, I mean, right to whatever, make whatever needs to be made to tell your story.
Yeah.
There's that grammar was terrible, but you get what I mean. Um, but every second counts. Like if you're sending somebody, whether you're submitting to a film festival or you're sending somebody a link to something on YouTube, if it's over 10 minutes, like the barrier to entry is so high because like you're competing with so much other content now
Yeah.
more than ever.
It better be fucking good.
Exactly. I try to keep my stuff to 5 and under. I have a few like 7 minute stuff. Um, but yeah, it's like it's a commit and I mean I'm just as guilty of that. Like somebody will send me something. It could be a filmmaker who I like love who makes a new short and I'll open it in a new tab and like leave it open and be like, oh, when I have 15 minutes, I'm gonna watch that. But like it'll just be one of 300 tabs open that I'll eventually
Yeah.
forget about and then
Hmm.
close out and lose it. Um, so yeah, I try to that's my approach to shorts in general. So yeah, Reverberance, TJ and I shot it together. We had an exceptional cast and crew, a bunch of friends, a bunch of people we worked with before. Um, and then the pandemic happened, so we shot it in like late 2019, I think. Um, And I was the editor, so I had to, I mean, again, 3 minutes, so I had to do the edit done like the next day. But we were relying on other people who could actually do it well, to work on the sound design and the score.
Yeah,
which were two super important things in this movie in particular because it is ASMR themed, which I forgot to mention came at the very last minute. Like the morning we were going to shoot, we knew sound design was going to be important, like that
sure.
because it didn't have dialogue. And like we wanted that kind of spacey synthy, not like 80s synth, but more like spacey again, for lack of a
Yeah,
better word, atmospheric synthy score. Um, but the day of the shoot, it came up. Somebody brought it up and was like, "You should like do this kind of ASMR style." I was like, "Oh," and that then it was like, "Oh, we just made this like what could have been like a kind of cool short, way cooler, I think."
yeah,
Um, so yeah, that was just like a stroke of luck of happenstance. Um, but yeah, so we eventually got to the score we wanted. We got the sound design we wanted. Very happy with it. Did festivals on and off for the last like I don't know year or so. And then yesterday was TJ's birthday. We were talking about finally putting it online. We wanted artwork. We finally got artwork made.
which is really
Um,
sick, by the way, and everybody can
thank
see
you,
it on the screen too. I have it
thank
on there.
you. Yes. I will. Shane is the artist's name. I will get his Instagram handle in a second because I forget off the top of my head. Um, but he also did our Return to Sleepaway Camp VHS art.
Oh, nice.
Um, so yeah, it all came together. We had everything, and then I was like, we should release this online soon. And then I realized TJ's birthday was yesterday. My tenses are messed up. I realized that in advance. I was like, let's drop it on your birthday. That'll be like a fun little thing. So we did it. It's out there now if anyone wants to see it. If you look up Reverberance, which I know is a difficult word to spell, I misspell it all the time, and I wrote the short. So, but it's you can find it on YouTube, Reverberance horror short. I'm sure it'll come up.
Yeah, I'll also have it
Um,
linked down below for everybody
oh,
to go check out as well.
even better. Thank you. That's another thing I try to do is unique titles. Even if they are multiple, like Reverberance,
Yeah,
because
it's
there's
a
like,
really fun
there's
word though.
it is. That's why we landed on it. Like this was TJ and I probably spent we didn't have a title when we shot it. That is one good thing that came out of the pandemic is we had time to think of a name. It was just called like a working title was just sounds.
Sounds.
Yeah. So we like I don't know, it was like one of those things like you look up sound on thesaurus.com or whatever and like try to find cool words that, evoke what the short is, but
Yeah.
you want to kind of tell people what they're getting in advance, but without, being something super generic like sounds. Um, so yeah, I am yeah, it's a weird title, but I am happy with where we landed on that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's got a pretty solid response so far. It's funny, Bloody Disgusting posted it, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, I saw that too, yeah.
So we got a bunch of people who would otherwise never have watched it. And right before this interview, I noticed it's on, I have to fix it. It's on Letterboxd, but it's misspelled on Letterboxd.
Of
Um,
course, man. Letterboxd always has something going on.
like
I
somebody, it
swear.
was definitely like the guy who watched it submitted it to have it on as part of his like, stuff he's watched, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But like if you click through, it's like he made like a list of like movies I watched in 2023 from best to worst, and it's like third from the bottom, like
Uh,
third from last.
hey, at
But I
least
was
it's
like, you
on the
know what?
list.
That's what I mean. He watched it. He took the time to make the letterbox page, which is cool. And like it's not last, so like what, I'll take it. But no, seriously, I don't expect anyone to like love everything I make. I'm very happy with Reverberance. It's not my favorite thing I've made. But just the fact that anyone takes the time to watch it, let alone to go through the trouble to whether it's, comment, share it, rank it, um, whatever, like I'm just humbled because I'm just a guy with some friends and a camera trying to make cool shit.
Yeah, man. And you do it. Like seeing it on the big screen, I think the first time I saw it was at man, was it last year at Monster Expo? I think it was at the
Yes, yes,
yeah. And I think he had another short there was Dark Ink,
yes. That
which
one
was also really
I
cool.
thank you. That one I co-wrote and produced. I didn't direct that one, but yes.
That concept was really really cool. I've always thought about that, getting tattoos and like what would happen. Is something
Well,
bad gonna happen?
quick aside about that. I'll try to keep it quick. Talking about the try to find a uniqueness that started, Jordan Pacheco, who directed that, we've worked on a ton of stuff together. He's awesome. He made the creature in Reverberance.
Oh, nice.
Um, he's an incredible special effects artist, also a great filmmaker in his own right. He's got 3 features under his belt. He had a friend. I don't know, it was like a friend of a friend, no, a sibling of a friend who had some sort of health issue and was setting up a fundraiser. And the idea was we were going to make this short as part of this fundraiser. And it was like, you pay whatever an entrance fee, you get to watch this short, you get to there's be like live music, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, as it turned out, this event never happened. I don't know. That's whatever. Hopefully the person who was sick is okay.
Yeah, let's
But
hope.
but they were like, we asked them like, what kind of horror movie? Like they're a horror fan, which is why they reach out to us about making something. But they're a horror fan. What's like their favorite subgenre, or like what would they like to see? And they said zombie movies. And Jordan had just made a movie. Um, it was called Dead Bounty when it was in production. It got distributed under the title The Trees Have Eyes.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
but that's one of those. Again, I love Jordan. It's a fun movie. I'm a zombie in it for a second. Um, but that's very much like a Romero, slow moving zombie kind of, character drama that has zombies in it.
Sure. Yeah.
So he had just made a zombie movie. He's like, oh man, I gotta do another zombie thing. So we pushed ourselves to do something that's zombie, adjacent, but it's nothing like a Romero movie. We have fast zombies, they're not traditional zombies. It's not like, The Bite. It's for, people haven't seen it because it's not online. I don't know what we'll do with it. This is I'm going on a tangent here, but
I like it though.
that short is like, I forget, like 13 minutes long. So again, it's hard to like, we don't want to put it online and just let it sit there and no one watches it because it's too long. And like, it's hard to, it's played a couple festivals, but it's hard to, book in a block of shorts when you have 45 minutes to 60 minutes. So like, are we really going to take up whatever? I can't do that math in my head, like 20% of the,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever, 10 to 20% of the runtime. Um, but I'm proud of how that came out. And yeah, so that one, in that one, it's like a necromancer kind of has makes this cursed tattoo ink that when these roommates get these matching tattoos, they kind of turn into these zombie-like creatures.
It's really fun. Oh my God, that needs to be available for everybody to watch.
We
Like,
should do something. Now it's like, that we made that like, yeah, I don't know, like 5 years ago. So now it feels like it's like a different person made those.
you should just do like a release, like a collection of all the shorts that you've done. I feel like that'd be really cool, especially since you're with Waiter Entertainment. Get that shit on the VHS, man.
I did one of our first release. In fact, it was our second release. We did Victor Crowley. And then our second release is a double feature of Dark Roast, which is a friend of mine, Topher Hansen's exceptional short. It's like 25 minutes, but it's worth every minute. In fact, it's on your Salem tape. It won the best short at the first Salem Horror Fest. Um,
Oh, okay,
s-
yeah.
so it's that which I worked on with Topher. I AD'd on that, and then it has Root of All Evil, which is a short I made that Topher acts in. That was like our second tape. And I've toyed with the idea of like doing, but I also don't want to be like, I don't know, pretentious and put out my own stuff too much.
Well, I mean,
Um,
you're a creator, dude. Like, I don't think it's gonna come off like that. I feel like if you are a creator and you have things that aren't readily available for somebody to watch, especially now that we're doing this on this show, I know people are gonna be like, "Well, I want to watch that short now." There should be a way for you to, be like, "Hey, here it is." Whether you do like a YouTube thing or it doesn't have to be like you have to buy the thing to get it, but I always feel like people need to see the work that people make, whether it's bad, good, or anything in between. And like you sent me all of your shorts in an email a long time ago. I think it's when Dean wanted to, take one of it for his his movie.
yeah,
That's a whole nother
I didn't make
story.
the cut, but
That's a whole nother story. But they're all different, but so fun. And from going to Salem Horror Fest for 4 years now, I want to say, and going at their short blocks and looking at all the things that can be done in a short film, it's made me like that sort of art form sort of more than a long feature film. Because like I said earlier, if you can, do a 3 to 5 minute short, have characters in it, do a great story, and leave people satisfied and being like, that was really good and that was only like 5 minutes. And this is a really good example. I don't remember the name of the short, and I hope that you do. It was uh at the Monster Expo festival that doing. There was like a 10-second short of a guy in an office, and everything just went haywire. I forget what the hell that was called, but it was so
I don't
good.
recall. You
Oh
should
my
have George
god.
on sometime though, who runs Happenstance Horror
I was
Fest.
I know I was trying, but he's, I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation. He says he might, but he gets anxious, so I don't
Oh,
blame him.
okay, okay.
But
He's a good dude. He's another one like again like the as much as the horror community is supportive, so is the horror film community, at least
yeah,
here in New England. I've worked on a couple of George's shorts,
yeah, we
and
showed one at
he's
was it for
oh
Pool Party
right.
Massacre?
It wasn't Pool
No, it was
Party.
for Death Drop Gorgeous is when we did that
Yes, it
one.
was Death Drop. Yeah, you showed last night, which I edited, and
That was such a good short.
uh,
Oh my
yeah, that's a fun one.
god.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was so cool. But yeah, if you guys can make something, and this goes out for anybody, if you're trying to get into creating films, starting with a short film, I think is key. If you can make a good story with dialogue, without dialogue, with multiple characters or a single character, and really bring it home and have the audience or whoever's watching it feel very satisfied at the end, you're doing something right. And just kind of build upon that, because then you're like, okay, so now I know where I need to go if I'm going to be directing something, or I like doing it this style of way, and then just kind of add on it. Or what some people do is they'll create a short film, and then later down the road, like 10 years later, it's a full length film. Or
Yeah, you
in
see that a lot
this,
on the festival circuit. Yeah.
yeah, and like, or like a teaser trailer that we've been waiting on for 13 years, and the film finally comes out this year. And is maybe a disappointment or not. How it depends on how you view that film. But yeah, short films I think are very important. Not just for the horror community, but for films in general. I feel like that's the lifeblood, in my
Yeah,
honest
I mean,
opinion.
I it's like I don't know, it's like training wheels for a bike. It's how you learn.
Yeah,
Like if you were to try to learn your way, and I know people have done it, particularly in like, pre-digital age, but if you were to try to learn on a feature, like just jump right in head first without the proper resources or knowledge, like it's gonna be a mess,
a heart
most
attack
likely.
waiting to happen.
Yeah. Uh, like I said, I don't think people realize just how much goes into making even a 5 minute short. That said, if that is where you start, like it's a lot easier to get people, good, talented people to commit to a job, even if it's low or no pay, if it's 1 day's commitment. It's not, can you block off these whatever 5 weekends or these, the next 12 days or,
Yeah,
it's a and then the turnaround to have a complete product is also usually, a lot faster than a feature because there's not so much to do in post-production.
yeah. Oh, the other thing that we showed was Cyber Shock.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Cybershock
the
1999, yeah.
trailer, the fake trailer, that was so fucking fun.
That's definitely like some of the most fun I've had making something.
That was so
Um,
ridiculous.
there's a guy, Richard Griffin. He is a Rhode Island-based independent filmmaker. He used to be like the godfather of indie horror in New England, at least in my eyes. I learned a lot. I don't know if I ever would have started making shorts if it weren't for time I spent on his sets. It was just, again, a lot of passionate people there because they loved movies. He used to churn out like two low budget horror comedies a year that were like pretty solid.
Oh wow. Wow.
Um, he and my first few shorts are almost entirely made up of people, cast and crew who I met working on his sets. But he made this movie called Seven Dorms of Death, which it's my favorite movie of his. It's like sometimes this can be bad for lack of a better, but his this one is not. But when people try to make a bad movie, there's something, disingenuous about it.
Yeah.
But this one, it's supposed to be like a schlocky old movie on like a late night horror host show. And that's the setup. So he asked some of his, people who worked with him who he knew were also filmmakers to make fake trailers for it. Speaking of Thanksgiving, so that's how Cybershock came to be. He was like, do you have any ideas? Which I didn't, but I was like, let me pitch you a couple things. And I was like, oh, I want to do something kind of like Escape from New York, but not just Escape from New York, but more like the Italian ripoffs of Escape from New York.
Hell yeah.
He's like, yes, do it. So I wrote like a little script. Again, filmed it in a day. That was fun because it's literally just like all my friends. I was like, who wants to be on camera? Like, you don't have to act at all, really. Like, you just need to come and hang out and like maybe get a little fake blood on you. So we had, even though I think we filmed on a day, it was like 20 degrees out, so it was freezing, but
Oof.
it was super fun. Cut it into a fake trailer, got like a voiceover on it. It's only, 90 seconds long or whatever, but no, I have great fondness for that project. And I don't know if it's streaming anywhere, but if you can find Seven Dorms of Death, you'll definitely get a kick out of it.
I'll take a look, and if I find it, I'll also put that down below because I want to check that out.
Yeah, no, I think you'll like it. And if I mention any shorts that aren't readily available, like Dark Ink or Cybershock isn't available online on its own, just like message me and I'll send you a link. You can like,
Hell yeah. I guess we can also kind of talk about Witter Entertainment because we talked about that briefly of doing of the VHS releases. How did that come together with you doing it with Broke Horror Fan?
so common misconception, but quick point of clarification. I am technically not at all involved in Witter Entertainment.
Okay.
Um, it is a partnership between Brocar Fan, which is me, and then Witter
Mm-hmm.
Entertainment, which is James, who's one of my best friends. Um, James and I, oh God, I'm going to go on another long tangent. I'm going to try to keep it short. James is in a pop punk band called Scholar. They're not active now, but they're awesome if you're into like early Blink-182 kind of like skate punk, pop punk stuff. Um, I used to write for this site called Absolute Punk, which was basically like what Bloody Disgusting is to horror movies, Absolute Punk was to like early 2000s pop punk
Oh, nice.
scene. It was like, it was the place to go to read news about that kind of stuff. Um, so James like just like sent me a link to his band one day and like I tried to listen to anything anyone said to me and I really liked it. So we became friends on like Facebook. Um, and through a series of events, his band was recording their first like album. They were looking for someone to do like a documentary about it.
Okay.
He hired me to do it. We instantly hit it off. Similar sense of humor, similar tastes in music, obviously, and then come to find out we were also both big horror fans. Um, and he's, now one of my best friends. We've collaborated on and off on a number of things. He did the scores for my first couple of shorts. We co-wrote
Oh, wow.
Trouser Snake, my second short, together. Um, he still does a lot of my sound design. Um, because he comes from that music world and has that background. So one day I think we were actually working on a script, but it just came up that he was like, you have this is when I was still just doing Broke Horror Fan. It was before Bloody and before Screambox. He was like, you have this huge following, but like, there's not really anything you can do with it other than like that they listen. He's like, you should try to, we joke now that he was like, "Oh, you should just exploit your audience," which is not how it came up. He was not being cynical about it, but he's like, would they? It was like basically, would they buy branded stuff? Like, and it's like I had made Brocar fan shirts that like I sold a handful, but like, not, and I didn't expect to sell out. But it was like it was the same mentality when I started Brocar fan or when I write a short. It's like I want to do something different that not everyone else is doing.
Sure.
So he had, he had brought up merchandising of some kind, and it was like, I don't want to do shirts, I don't want to do screen prints, stuff like that. It's like I love all those things, I collect all those things, but like there's already so many other companies out there that are doing it and doing it better than I
Yeah.
could. I want to find something that doesn't have a million, you know, competitors, for lack of a better word, a million people already trying to do it. So we landed on VHS. It's obviously something we're both nostalgic about. Um, Now, all of our VHS releases have been a collaborative effort between the two of us. So they're branded as Broke Horror Fan Presents, but distributed by Witter Entertainment.
Yeah.
Um,
Looks like that.
yes.
If it shows
So
up
we,
good on
yeah,
camera.
that banner is the cover on all of them, is on the cover of all of them. Um, so we basically divide up the work. Our first few tapes, I did the duplication. Now James does all the duplication, and he also does which is why he's technically the distributor. He does all the actual packing and shipping to people. Um, I do the graphic design, and I crop all of our movies to 4:3, so they're all,
Wow.
VHS
Wow.
format, full screen with director approval whenever possible. Um, so yeah, it really is a 50-50% partnership. And that has grown considerably over the years. I think I mentioned earlier, our first tape was Victor Crowley,
Yep.
which was crazy. It was like, we didn't want to, we could have started with, like shorts or like a friend's local indie feature, which would have been cool. Like there's places for that stuff. There's
Sure.
room for that stuff. But we really wanted to like start with something that would get people excited. Um, and it was like, again, through like a series of events, Broke Horror Fan had sponsored Adam Green's podcast's charity marathon.
Oh, okay. Wow.
uh, right around the time that Victor Crowley, I think it had done theaters but hadn't been on Blu-ray yet. Um, right around the time we had had this conversation, James and I. So I was like, that would be like a dream. I'm a huge Adam Green fan. He was very inspirational in getting me to start making movies. Um, and uh, Victor Crowley obviously is, the Hatchet series is kind of a throwback to 80s horror, so like it made perfect sense on the VHS format. So I emailed his team, was like, hey, we just did this, we just launched this podcast. It went well. What are the odds? Like, we know Adam doesn't have the rights to this movie, but like, we want him on board if we're going to do it. Like, what are the odds we can make this happen? And Adam was super open to it. He was like, yeah, I've seen bootlegs of Hatchet movies on like the convention circuit. It'd be so cool to have an officially licensed one.
Oh, nice.
Here's the contact at Dark Sky, who like if anyone can make it happen, it's them. They're the distributor. They own the rights. Um, so our first tape was actually manufactured by Dark Sky. They already had the infrastructure to do it because they had done House of the Devil. They did like a promotional, it started as a promotional thing,
Love
then I
that
think they
movie.
actually sold it. Yeah, oh, easily one of my favorite modern horror movies.
So good.
So we kind of got uh like strong-armed into a deal. We ended up having to produce more than we initially agreed on in order to get the price that they had quoted us. Um, and we had no quality control. It was like they gave us the tapes, they were all complete. We just mailed them,
Yeah.
which was on paper, that's awesome. But again, I mean, if
Two
as
dudes
anyone who
doing that.
is,
That's a lot of work, man.
well, it was, as anyone who's ever worked with me will tell you, I'm a bit of a control freak. Um, but mostly for quality purposes, if that makes sense. Like it doesn't have to be
No,
my
I get
way,
it.
but I want it to be
I'm
what's
kind of the
best
same way.
for, yeah, yeah. I want it to be what's best for everyone for whatever the particular thing is. In this case, it's the VHS. Um, so we wanted to have like Adam record an intro to be on the tape, and they were like, "No, you can't. Like, we can't." Then we have to go in and edit the file, like, and
Ugh.
you. So we couldn't put like our logos at the beginning. We couldn't have an intro. So it was like just like little stuff like that that adds up. So we're like, all right, from here on out, we're just gonna like we we're just gonna buy VCRs, daisy chain them together and duplicate them. So that's what we've done. I mean, we've upped our setup over the years, but that's still essentially how it works. Still just James and I. His girlfriend Rochelle also helps out a bunch. Uh, but yeah, it's I personally crop every single movie and do the graphic design for every case, and then he physically packs and ships, every single order, just the two of us. And we've gotten some, when we first had that conversation, well, once Victor Crowley happened, we were like, all right, what's like, attainable, but like technically attainable. In other words, no major studio movies, but like movies that are like white whales that we'll probably never be able to get. And like we've already done a cut, like Mandy was one of the big ones at that time because that had
Oh
just
yeah.
come out around this time. We are like, that's a fucking awesome movie. Would be incredible on VHS. And that came together. We've done the Terrifier movies have
Yep.
obviously been huge for us. Worked with so many like I don't know, one of our early releases was Nightmare Cinema, so we like worked with Mick Garris
Oh,
and like
that's
we put
yeah. I
out
saw that
a
one and I
Joe
was like,
Dante. It's like
oh, that's such an awesome one. I wish I had that. I was like, damn, so
well,
cool.
hit me up off air and I'll see what we got. Um, but no, I mean it's just been we've worked with so many like filmmakers who we admire, and like people we never thought in a minute. Like I don't know, we put out an Adam Rifkin movie called Director's Cut, which is incredibly underrated movie. Adam Rifkin, he made Detroit Rock City, which is
Okay, yep, yep.
awesome movie. But it's written and starring Penn Jillette of Penn and Teller fame. So we have like a tape that has Penn Jillette doing an intro on it, and he like laughs. He's like I like literally laughs in the camera doing it, recording an intro for us. He's like he wanted to be on VHS and just like cackles. Um, so it's just like I don't know, just like the people we've worked with is incredible. We have multiple Nick Cage movies now. We've got movies that are like my like Psycho Gorman a few years ago. That's probably my favorite movie of whatever year that came out, and now like that's our tape.
Yep.
We have that on tape. So yeah, I mean it's just been incredible, and like the filmmakers are always stoked because a lot of them grew up obviously watching stuff on VHS, but then coming of age and becoming filmmakers in the digital age where they just assumed that's never going to happen. We're never going to have a tape on VHS. So there's like Joe Lynch, we did Mayhem with him, and he was super supportive. Tyler McIntyre, we did Tragedy Girls with. He was
Yep.
so stoked about it. Like it's just been, I don't know, just like really cool experience.
Yeah, and they're great quality too. And I don't really watch them. I have them more as a a thing to be like, I have this. This is great.
Well, that's
It's,
that's part of the appeal. It's the collectability. They're
yeah.
all well, most of them are limited. A lot of our early stuff sold out really fast, so we started making bigger runs because people were getting mad at us. Um, But
Yeah.
yes, quality is like our paramount for us. Like, we went through a bunch, spent a bunch of money, like trying to find the right printer who could do, good quality. Like, we don't want like blurry text when the on the fine print or
Yeah.
anything like that. Like, we
Yep.
want it to look like a professional, even though it is just two dudes in a basement making it. Like, we want it to look like something you'd go buy at a big box store,
Hell yeah.
albeit 30 years ago or whatever.
Yeah. Whenever I do get a VCR though, I am going to be popping those in because they're so awesome, and to be able to have VHSs again. Like if I ever go to like my dad's house, like he has all of my old VHSs in multiple boxes. Where I'm like, those are probably all bad now because they haven't been transferred. But
A lot,
like,
a lot of like especially in the horror genre, like a lot of the old tapes are worth a bunch now too if you
yeah,
have like
yeah.
the right stuff.
I don't know if I have any horror tapes in there. I might. I know my mom has the original full Nightmare on Elm Street box set on
Oh, that's what.
VHS.
How much does she want for it? That's like one of my my
Yeah,
white whales.
I don't know, but
I'll
it's
trade you
down.
a bunch of Witter tapes.
Yeah, we
I
have
actually
that
just it's
in mint
actually
condition too.
it's in the mail. It's coming from there's a site called Pentagram Peter Pan that does cool merch and apparel. It's like a giant throw blanket that had that image on it of the spines of all the tapes.
That's awesome.
Um,
That's
so
awesome.
I'm gonna hound you about that off air.
All
But
right, I'll have to call my mom after and to make sure like it's still good. But um, yeah, she's the one that like really turned me on to that because obviously I watched him from the tapes, growing up. Another thing that I really like this isn't horror related, but something that she also has, but I think it's from my stepfather, is the full complete animated X-Men VHS, like
oh, that's cool.
every episode, which is awesome. And like I
Yeah.
watched that so much growing up. X-Men and horror.
Are you a
But
big Dream Warriors guy?
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like that's like basically X-Men
yeah,
versus
yeah.
Freddy.
But yeah, it's just so cool to see all these different like avenues and media outlets and stuff that you do. You are, besides like Dean, you are the busiest person I know. So for you to be
I'm
here
coming for you,
for
Dean.
for you to be here for about an hour is incredible, and like I thank you for that. But I'm not letting you go yet. I have another question I want to ask you.
Dude, of course. I have another long rambling answer to give you.
All right, awesome. As a horror fan myself, as obviously everybody knows, the one thing that I always strive for when I'm watching horror is to have that same feeling you had as a kid when you watched something and you were scared, and like that's all you thought about. You had nightmares for a week. This is crazy, but I'm sure some other people can relate to this. I remember Edward Scissorhands, the opening scene with him coming out from underneath like the like he's in the ceiling and he's coming out from like behind the shadows and
Oh yeah, it's very like
preaching.
gothic looking, yeah.
That gave me nightmares for 2 weeks. And that movie's not necessarily horror, but you know who
It's
directed it, so it's a mix of
genre
it.
adjacent, yeah.
Um, like that scared the hell out of me. And there's other films that really scared me, like the first time I watched Halloween, and it's obviously now my favorite movie ever. Franchise is still my favorite, and it's got some bumps there,
I
but
mean, they all
that's
do.
okay. And that scared like the hell out of me. But are you the same way? Other than like enjoying the films that you're watching, but are you actively seeking out that one thing that can scare you?
Oh, 100%. I will say I think the horror genre, why it works so well, why it appeals to me so much, is how versatile it can be.
Yeah,
You can mash it up with any other genre and have something cool. There's horror comedies that are funnier than some straight comedies. There's, horror sci-fi. There's horror, you can even do horror romance. There's horror action. There's horror westerns. Like you can do anything with it. And you can also tell stories that you maybe couldn't tell without the genre bend, at least not as easily or as accessibly. Um, I mean, it's a trite point at this point, but look at something like Get Out. Like if
yeah,
that wasn't a horror movie, people would look at it differently, I feel like. But because it's told through this genre lens, you can make that social commentary, obviously dating back to Romero and earlier than that, but kind of you can imbue it with this social commentary, or you can just have, a dude in a mask killing people for no apparent reason. And like that's also cool. Like I'm into all of it. But yes, I'm always, it's chasing that dragon of something that's gonna scare you or appeal to you the way, it did when you were younger. Um, Obviously fewer and farther between, very desensitized to the genre, but every once in a while there'll be something that gets under my skin a bit.
yeah.
Um, I think the last movie that really did it for me, was Terrified. Uh,
Oh, yeah, that's
the
got some scenes in it.
I think it's Argentinian
Yeah, I
horror
believe
movie.
so.
I think it's on Shudder,
It
or it
should still
was at the
be.
time. I don't know if yeah, I think it is. That was the last movie that really like gave me the heebie-jeebies. More every once in a while, like a jump scare will get me, or like something I'll watch something and be, like Hereditary. I'll watch and be like, oh,
That,
that's
mm-hmm.
fucking scary. But it didn't really like I
Yeah,
don't know, it didn't stick with me the same way. But Hereditary is definitely up there as well. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm always just that's also I've also transitioned, not to make this about myself again, but I'm gonna. Um, my if you were to like I sent you a link to like basically everything I made, like you said. And if you follow like the arc, I was definitely like I started with horror comedy stuff because that's kind of the easier route to take when you're making shorts. I shouldn't say easier, but I mean it's like it's a joke, it's a setup and a punchline when you're especially when you're doing like 5 minute stuff. And I've more or less transitioned. I still love doing that. Um, but I've more focused on like straight horror stuff because that's more where my passion lies. It's more where my viewing habits lie. And like I want to be, like you said, I want to be the one that makes something that, whatever, gets under somebody's skin, gives
Yeah.
somebody nightmares. Like that's my goal in life, I guess, is to scare people. So yeah, I mean I'm hoping, one day we get to the feature realm and make something that's worthwhile.
Oh, I'm excited. But yeah, Hereditary definitely that got me. That one I always think of as like that movie had some stuff going in it that I've I haven't felt that in a long, long time. And then as of this year, right? This year? Yeah, it had to have been this year. I know it doesn't hit a lot of people for the same reason, but Skinamarink. People have like their views on that, but I saw that at Cinema Salem when they were showing it. I think it was the first night that they had it. So I was there in the big room, big screen, packed theater. Yeah, it's a very, weirdly filmed movie, but it has its meanings for it, why it's shot that way. And then seeing the events that happened in it, and this kind of like hit me in a whole different nerve. And I actually I talked to Ross, who was the father in that film, about
Hmm.
this, and he kind of agreed on it. Is being a parent, that film really hits you in a whole different way. Realizing like, what if that's my son that's stuck in this weird time loop, weird alternate dimension nightmare realm, right? And there's these things happening. So throughout the whole film, I'm like thinking like, oh my god, what's happening to my son right now? Like, is he okay? And then that last scene where it kind of like lingers on that face, and it can
Hmm.
vaguely see it. That I was like, okay, that's what I strive for. That's what I want to feel. I got home. On my way home, I called to make sure my son was okay because I was freaking out. And also, when I got home, I was looking around the whole place like, is there something watching me right now? And that's the feeling that I want when I watch a horror film. If it's a straight up horror film, nothing like in between or making any kind of mess, straight up horror, really trying to make you feel scared, that's what I want to feel. And that's what I'm striving for. So I'm hoping that there's something out there, whether it be a short, full length, foreign film, whatever it may be, that really hits that nerve. I want to feel that. And it's insane to be like, why do you want to feel like there's something watching you? Why do you want to have this weird feeling? I
No,
don't
I get
know.
it. It's like it's an adrenaline rush, and it's also like you're scared, but also in the back of your mind. Granted, it could maybe not skin and rink, but a lot of these situations could happen. But it's like you
Yeah.
also know like it's not really a threat because it's like you just watching a movie. Like, but no, that is I'll get that sometimes. Like I'll watch something in the middle of the night and then go to bed. It's all dark and you're kind of like looking over your shoulder as you're
And like you drift
uh
away and then you wake up and you're like,
yeah,
oh
yeah,
crap.
yeah.
Was there something there? I love
No,
that. I
but
love it.
yeah, and on the subject of Skinamarink, I mean, again, as like a somebody who wants to make movies, that was super inspiring because I like it, fan of it. It didn't hit me the way it hit you, but I appreciate it very much. But on a filmmaking level, I was like, wow, it really goes to show you that like you can do a lot with a little.
Yeah.
Between that one and the Outwaters that hit
Oh,
around the same
Outwaters too.
time,
Yeah. I forgot about
it's
that this
like
year.
you can do something that's on paper is familiar, but the way you approach it is just entirely, different, almost avant-garde. Um, so yeah, I mean, they've inspired me. I started after watching those two movies in a short span of time. I like started kicking around ideas for like, what can I do for a feature that's like attainable, that I don't need $1 million to
Yeah.
make, that I could make within the resources that I have. So yeah, I mean, I hope it inspires whatever the next generation of resourceful, independent filmmakers.
Yeah. And I guess another film to kind of tack on with things that are kind of avant-garde. This film didn't really like scare me, but the how this movie was made was Landlocked, which is on Screenbox right
It is
now.
on
And
Screenbox, and I hate to admit this publicly, but I haven't watched it yet, and I've heard nothing but good things. So
Alex,
like it's on
we're
my
over.
watch list because like that
We're
was
over,
again the
man.
same the same yeah, I know, right? The same around the same time, and it was like the whole liminal horror movement,
Yeah, low
micro
budget,
movement
high
that happened.
concept.
Yeah. So that's been on my I'm gonna watch that very soon now that you bring that up, man.
Yes,
Um
it's so good. And talking to Paul, yeah, that made that, and to know that he's now, part of Garf. He's underneath the wing of Travis Stevens right now. I think that's who he's working with for whatever's happening next. But to know that a lot of that film was made of child hood films that were made from
Well, that's
parents and stuff.
just
It's
the
so
concept.
awesome.
Yeah, I think I initially heard of that one through a Fangoria article, if I recall.
It might
And
have
just like
been because it was also shown at Salem Horror Fest in 22. I think
yeah,
it was
I think it was 22
2022.
because that's how we got the Travis Stevens thing, right? Or
Yeah,
was 20, I don't know, it doesn't matter.
it was.
But
It
yeah,
was one of those years, 2021 or 2022. I
but
forget.
yes, just hearing the concept, obviously as a dude who loves VHS, I was like, "Oh, that's amazing. That's brilliant." And like I can't and I've said I can't wait to see it and now I have waited to see it and now I look like an idiot, but I am going to watch that one.
Yes.
I know that one's also been kind of divisive, but like from the people who I trust and like people who have similar sensibilities as me, I've heard that it worked for them, so I'm very excited to give that a
It's
watch.
fun. It's fun. But there's so many things out there, and like I said, hearing these stories and talking about these films is inspiring, and I really hope someone can take any of these words that we're saying and like I don't know ideas really and put it to their own device, whatever they want to do to create something and show it, whether it's to your friends or your family or for yourself. Like that's another thing is to make it for yourself before anybody else. If you don't like it, what's the point? And that's another thing I always kind of like to say on here is like you always want to make sure whatever you're doing. Same with this, with what I'm doing with this podcast. I'm not going to have somebody on if I didn't enjoy their film, or if there's a movie that comes out, I'm not going to cover it if I didn't like it. I feel like it's kind of stupid to, I don't know, cover a film if you didn't like it to just shit on it. I feel like if you can watch a film and you have like a mixed feeling about it, not like hating it or disliking it, having a mixed feeling about it and being able to talk about it is better than just being like, oh, it sucked, don't go watch it, and hearing obviously everything that you've done and what you are currently doing and all the other things that you're doing in your day to day is super inspiring, and I thank you for wanting to come on here. This is something I've been wanting to do for a long time, but I know that your schedule is probably busier than anybody else's.
Yeah, suck it, Dean.
Suck it, Dean. I'll send this to him
Um,
right after, and then I'll tell him to listen to the whole thing. We shit on him.
yeah, no, dude, thank you for having me. I know this has been a long time coming. I didn't know, I knew you were a fan of Halloween. I didn't know that was your favorite franchise.
Hmm.
It's also mine. So next October, well, let's not record it in October because that's the busiest time of year, but let's record an episode like maybe in the summer when things are slow. And we're running in October, but we should talk about the whole franchise because
I've
that's
been
also
meaning
my
to do
favorite.
that. I've only
Let's
covered,
do it.
I think, the first one and then all of the recent ones besides Ends, because I have thoughts on that. But we'll leave that for
What was that
then.
you were saying about not talking about movies you don't like?
I have
No, but
thoughts.
it would be fun just to have two, nerdy fans,
Hell yeah, dude. And
you know,
You
go through the
you're
series.
welcome on here whenever you want to come on, whether it's to just talk about stupid things or if there's a movie like, hey dude, I know I'm doing a write up on this, but I want to verbally talk about it as well. I'm here, man, and
Thank you.
I'm welcome everybody on here. Everybody comes on here as part of the family. You guys are friends. And next year is going to be a very busy year for the podcast outside of this. Going back to live events, we've talked about some of them, and I think I can probably announce it now what the next one's going to be because I'm taking the rest of this month off and all of January for live events. I believe it is February 24th. We're going to be showing Heebie-Jeebie TV at Cinema Salem with the Heebie-Jeebie TV crew. And I'm super stoked for that. And tickets will be coming available, I think, by January, I'm pretty sure. And all the information will be coming out as I get it. But I'm really stoked for next year. And there's some other really cool things that are in the works that I can't believe are fucking happening. But once again, thanks to Alex, they're happening.
Yes, that's true. I will be a guest at the screenings.
Yes, yes.
Free signatures.
Honestly, that's what we need to do. Now, we'll say this on this is that we need to do a whole showing of all your shorts.
Oh God, no one would show up.
Oh, shut up, dude. Shut up. Shut up. We'll make it happen. We'll make it
Yeah,
happen
we'll
because I want
see.
that to happen.
But I will say, if you can't make it, if you aren't local, Heebie-Jeebie TV is on Screenbox. That said, if you can see it with an audience, it's a blast. That's actually, I saw that at Salem Horror Fest last year. Loved it so much, gave it a glowing review on Bloody Disgusting, and sent it to Brandon, former guest of the show and our head of acquisitions. I was like, "Hey, I love this movie. Can we get this?" And now it's streaming exclusively on Screenbox. So, yeah, make
Yeah.
movies, play in festivals that are cool, and cool things will happen.
Yeah. And if you see Alex, make sure you say hi to him because he is everywhere, and nowhere at the same time.
It's the perfect ending. I have nothing to add to that.
But yeah, this has been a blast, man. Thank you for coming on and chatting. This is the longest episode I've done in a long time. And like I said, it was very relaxed and kind of just, shooting the shit and just talking about what we do from day to day. As this show, I do it all for free. I don't get really paid from this, other than like live events. But to hear that you have gotten yourself up to the point to where you can, have a sustainable income from horror, I think that's what we all kind of strive for. So you are doing it right.
Thank you. No, this has been a blast, a nice walk down memory lane. And yeah, I get like I said this before, but if I can do it, anyone can. So yeah, just keep on keeping on. And again, anybody who might be listening who needs whatever advice, wants to send me a short or, whatever, do it. I'm always down to watch. Just make sure it's under 10 minutes.
Yeah, but thank you guys so much for being here. That's Alex DiVincenzo. You can find him on Bloody Disgusting, Procore Fan, Screenbox, doing any kind of partner work with Witter Entertainment. Is there anything I'm missing?
Um, my short films on YouTube.
Short films on YouTube. You do some press work for Fright Rags every now and then. So
This is true.
everywhere. You're just everywhere, man.
Yeah. Just look up the word horror and my name will be not far behind.
Yes. So thank you guys so much. And this will be coming out very soon for everybody. So we'll see everybody on the next one.
Thank you.